Hello, everyone. Welcome to our online video series, Reading Hope in Trying Times. Our guest today is our good friend, Jevon Bolden. For more than 15 years, Jevon has served in various editorial roles for both Christian and mainstream traditional publishers, from copy editor to senior acquisitions editor. And at Charisma House Book Group, Jevon served as senior acquisitions editor, managing the company's front list for its integrative health imprint, Siloam. She also managed key author relationships with the publisher's flagship imprint, Charisma House. In her next adventure, Jevon served as senior editor for the Scholastic Book Fairs imprint at Tangerine Press, working with brands such as Hasbro, Nickelodeon, Disney, Lucasfilms, Mouse Toys, and more. That had to be a lot of fun. Jevon worked to aim the imprint's content at the center of every reluctant child reader's heart and interests, helping to fulfill Scholastic's mission of creating lifelong readers. As one of the winners of the company's coveted Book of Distinction Award, Jevon was recognized for her efforts to maximize her team's opportunities within the company. Now leading her own publishing consulting firm, Bolden Media Group, Jevon remains an essential editorial partner, ghostwriter, writing coach, publishing consultant, and now literary agent for a number of ABA and CBA best-selling authors, while she and her team provide custom editorial and publishing services to independent authors around the world. I'm also happy to say that Jevon has served as a featured speaker at our Writing for Your Life and Publishing in Color conferences. She was going to be joining us in Charlotte in this past March, and hopefully we'll be able to reschedule that to the fall. But in any event, we're really glad to have you here with us today, Jevon.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and just excited to share with our community. Really, it's all of us together in book publishing, Christian book publishing, making sense of this new climate that we're a part of together.
Well, it's always a joy to collaborate with you, Jevon. I mean, for those of you that don't know Jevon very well, she's like a really hard worker, really insightful person and role that she plays within this industry. So I really enjoy working with her. Maybe you can start off just by sharing kind of your reaction to what's been going on with this whole pandemic and how it's affected both you personally and your business.
Yeah. So, as it kind of began, I really wasn't even sure what we were looking at. I couldn't quite understand, there were so many different messages coming out of the news, and of course from person to person, and then, stay home or don't stay home. This is like the flu, but not the flu. I was really at first like, well, what is the big deal? We kind of get flus and colds and we make it through, or we don't, or, and so it was challenging at first to even figure out what was going on. And then as, things became clearer, the situation became where you could understand that we really did need to respond seriously and quickly to the changes that were happening in our world. And, of course, one of the things that I think is so special about it's kind of like a double entendre, I guess. We've kind of got this thing where, we're so unified, we're so connected to each other. One of the things that this brings out to me is our interconnectedness, and how the decisions that we make day to day really affect, not just the people that we know, but people that are, we talk about that 6 degrees of separation.
Less than 6 now, isn't it?
Yeah, so much closer than that. Even across the world, it's not just that, we're worried only about, the countries that we live in, but, the things we do within those countries affect the world. And so that's kind of like an interesting, sort of like a positive, if that makes sense, that helps me to feel like the world is closer and smaller than it really than we've kind of understood it to be in the past. And I love that idea of us being close. Of course, the other part of it is, that I'm sensing and feeling the grief that we're feeling as a world. The uncertainty, the concern, the fear, the loss of income, the loss of life, and even in some cases, the loss of hope and just not being sure what the next step is. And, so feeling that and sensing that, of course, and then, as a believer, as a Christian, keeping our leaders in prayer, keeping each other in prayer, so that the best decisions can be made in this situation. Of course, we're seeing all kinds of decisions being made, but still praying toward that end, that God has the whole world in his hands and that he's kind of watching out for us all. For me, there really hasn't been significant changes. I was booked out for most of the year. I think I was booked out for travel until July, I think. And so I was looking forward to lots of trips and traveling quite a bit, a few times a month, since from March to July, I think I had trips planned. So it feels a little bit, well, almost all of those have been postponed or canceled. So that's an adjustment, especially as a small business owner. You know, those are opportunities to connect and to network and to even, you know, possibly, build certain streams of income. So that's been affected. But, you know, there's also been other things that have been presented, like even us talking today in this new kind of way. You're so creative, Brian. You just kind of, and you're flexible and you're innovative. And so, you know, a lot of people are moving to different ways of connecting, different ways of networking, and different ways of promoting and supporting each other. And I'm so grateful for you thinking of that. So a lot of the things that I had, you know, thought I was going to get to do, I'm not able to do in this season, but there are lots of opportunities to do other things. And so I will say this, I work from home, as you can see in my background. I have my office in my room because I just like the closeness, and this has a good vibe for me. The blue in the background, you can see it, it's very peaceful. So a lot has not changed for me in that area. I have plenty of writing projects and I'm grateful. I have new authors to be pitching and promoting. There are still places and associations that I'm consulting with on a monthly basis and so forth. So, and I have my NUMA writers that we're still doing workshops for. All of that was online and serving authors globally, actually. So there's not a whole bunch of change there for me except for my trips, and I do like to travel occasionally.
Well, I'm in the same boat with you there, since I had 5 conferences I was producing this spring that have all been canceled or disrupted, and you were going to be, part of those. And, that's why I came up with this series, because it's like, okay, what do we need to do something, right? To replace it for people and help people to the degree we can. So I appreciate you participating in it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And it's nice, to hear, you had already been doing so many things online, and, that's serving you really well right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have to agree. There have been, of course, because of economic challenges, there have been some who were not able to continue with some of, just speaking as a business owner, some things do adjust where your clients are having to make different decisions for their families. And, they are, some people have decided to suspend subscriptions and things like that. But then there are others who are like, I am pressing into my dreams and my goals of being a published author, so I'm going for it. So I've been getting a lot of emails or calls for that. I'm going to use this time, while I'm at home to write my book. Will you help me? Will you publish it? Will you edit it? So that's a really good thing to see too. But then I also am keeping the authors in prayer whose lifestyles have significantly been impacted by this pandemic outbreak. And so, understanding that those changes need to be made too, and that we need to keep them close in our prayers.
Absolutely. It's just amazing kind of how much different this impacted one person versus the next.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So you and I had actually both read a Publishers Weekly article about, it was an interview with some different agents, about, do we pitch now or do we pitch later? So I'm curious as to your view on, I know there's never one right answer or one pat answer to such a question, but, what are your thoughts on that right now?
Yeah. So there are, for me with my authors, I have deliberately, I know I'm getting queries, and if you're watching this and you have pitched me, I see your query. However, there are some, because I'm a new agent, and Brian, you kind of spoke to this a little bit. One of the things that matters to me is being able to actually keep my word. I am working very hard on different things, but, so I have a small group of authors, about 12, that I am working with right now, and I really want to see them do well. So my focus is toward that. And a few of them are seeing some movement and some traction with their proposals. We're pitching some of them still. We have some deals closing. And there are some things that are sort of along the way that are getting a little bit slowed down because publishers are having to make some adjustments. There are, publishers who have warehouses that are having to make adjustments based on health, the new health requirements and things like that. Businesses, publishers who are sending their staff home to work, and so there's some adjustment there. So the article, I felt like there was, like you said, there were many different perspectives, but I felt like all of them were spot on when it came to what we're looking at and having to adjust. There are some topics, there are some authors who I advise who are, kind of asking, well, I was really looking forward to my book coming out right now. And I am suggesting to some of them, if you wait, your message will be right on time for on the way out of this. People are going to be looking for certain messages and certain books, certain things to help them arise and to recover and to restore after this. So there are some messages that may not fit right now, things that, are not urgent right now. However, in a few months or early next year, we may see that those messages or those themes and those topics are rising to the surface again, where people will find need demand. One thing, I was talking to a friend, a writer friend, and we were talking about how resilient literature is. Literature has survived the dark ages and libraries being burned down and war and, and so many plagues and, censorship and so much, but our culture thrives off of literature. So there is we don't, even though there may be some slowdowns and some things kind of happening right now, there is great hope that books will survive this. Books will always be there. There will always be a need and demand for great stories and great messages. We may be halting, we may be choosing a bit fewer now, but there's still, I have great expectations and hope for publishing going forward, even though we might be hitting some areas where we have to adjust and step back in some places. But I have great hope for publishing. And like I said, for my authors, the things that we're doing personally, some deals are closing. And one of the other things I mentioned, authors, this is a great time if you have notes and things from your agent or from your readers groups or from your critique groups or whatever. This is a great time to look through those revisions and make those changes that you need to make. This is also a really good time to work on your book proposal and begin to put a little bit more effort into building your platform and making those connections. Just like, it's great. Brian and I were just saying that this is another, medium for connection. Some of the meetings that, or where I was going to be traveling to conferences and I would have, been meeting people in large groups even, I'm able to now have similar types of meetings, but more one-on-one because we're not in those groups. So the attention that editors are able to give to projects, especially when they're represented by agents, is a little bit different. And I appreciate the fact that, I can have an audience of one versus, trying to speak to editors in a group and trying to, let me go over here and get to this one, let me get to that one, amidst many workshops and, when it comes to like writers conferences and things like that. So I think those are some benefits of what we're looking at right now.
Isn't it wild? I've sensed the same thing. Like when I'm at a conference, especially, one of the ones I'm producing, I'm just so busy I don't have time to have, in-depth good conversations with very many people.
Right.
Whereas now, we get to schedule this, we get to talk, it's just much more in-depth and better opportunity to build relationships and strengthen relationships.
Right. And you can really kind of like have a captive audience versus like, when you're in a group of people, you're kind of like, oh, hey, you're looking around and you see, your attention is divided. But, of course, now if we're scheduling Zoom meetings or phone conferences, we are able to have that captive audience as we're talking about our ideas.
Well, I really love what you said about, your dedication to your current authors, and the loyalty that, doing right by them, given, some strange times.
Yeah.
And also the nuance that you are applying to, the topical fit, whether it's there or not, now or later. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really wonderful on multiple fronts there.
Thank you.
So one of the things we've been chatting about in this series is just really kind of how God has helped us, through challenging times in the past, and how that may be relevant for today. Are there anything that you'd like to share on that front?
Well, if you've lived long enough, you're going to run into some trouble.
Isn't that the truth?
There's going to be challenges in life. That's just about guaranteed. And man, there have, yes, been some very difficult times that, I've lived through. I remember I could speak about this time. There was a point where we had a fire in our apartment and completely destroyed all of our belongings. So we ended up living in a hotel for like 60 days while they were redoing it. And that was probably one of the most challenging times, being displaced from your home. And I know people who've gone through disaster, hurricanes or whatever, floods and things, when you're displaced from your home, it's just a terrible feeling. And then even having to work through the restoration process can be very challenging. I remember, getting disappointing news sometimes from the contractors, or getting disappointing news from the insurance people. And it would just, I would feel like I was on this roller coaster of emotion, hope one minute, disappointment the next. And one of the things that just stayed true for me was that, two particular things. One was the story of Daniel and his three friends from the Bible, Daniel, and they were, they decided they were going to stand for God, no matter what the situation was. The king was asking them to bow to his image, and they said, no, we won't do that. And, but they were saying, we trust God will be with us. And even if he won't be with us, we still will stay, even if he doesn't spare our lives, we will still stand for him no matter what. So it turned out that they were thrown in the fiery furnace, and Jesus came. We understood from the scriptures that it was the Spirit. Jesus came and stood with them, and they did not get burned. There was no smell of fire even on them as they left the furnace. And for me, that was, of course, coming out of a fiery situation in real life, that meant a lot, that coming out of this, there will not be the smell of fire on you, Jevon. So that was like a message for me, even though we were, literally all of our belongings, were lost, or so we thought. That was a sustaining principle. God is with you, and you will come out of this, and not even the smell of fire will be on you. So there's some of us who are going through this time with the coronavirus and so forth, and some people are coming out healed. Some people are going through the process. Some people are passing away. But I'm encouraged that Jesus is with us even through this fire, and that he will restore things and make them new again. And I'm excited about that. The second thing for me was going through it and kind of going through these, that roller coaster of emotion, from hope to disappointment over and over again, and to ultimate, restoration of all things and new things and all that came out of it, was the hymn, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. And turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim. For me, that brought, I cried over that one, because it's just the idea of looking to Jesus, despite all the difficulty, and seeing everything else, the fear, the hopelessness, the disappointment, the loss of many different things grows dim in the light of his glory and grace. And so even though things were very challenging, just keeping that focus on look to Jesus, look to Jesus, gave me great strength in that time. And so that's, to me, those are two promises that held true for me during those times, and it's holding true for me even now.
Isn't it amazing how meaningful music is for folks right now?
Oh my goodness.
You know, just music for its beauty, but also music for its meaning, you know, like you've discussed. You know, everyone has their favorite hymns or their favorite, you know, songs that mean a lot to them for whatever reason. And right now, you know, people are really drawing on that strength.
I have seen, even this wasn't necessarily spiritual, but I think it was a spiritual experience because of the connection. But I loved watching people get excited about the D Nice doing, he was doing Instagram DJ parties, and people were able to tune in, and I thought that was so cool. Yeah, music is powerful, and I think it's similar to how words and literature are powerful. Because it's kind of like the combination of two things that move us from deep within, you know.
So are there any other kind of resources or books or other things that you'd like to share with folks to help them get through these terrible times?
Books. I want to say, I would think that if you have this is just me. Of course, there are the Psalms. Psalms 37 is a great one. But then I think for everyday hope, because of, you know, what we're kind of, you know, I feel like this is a time very similar to what I went through years ago with the fire, but it's happening on an hourly basis for us, this hope and disappointment thing, because we are, like I mentioned earlier, so interconnected. We're moved by each other's pain. We're moved by the grief of each other. You know, it's just, you know, and so as we're watching, you know, we're excited to see people get well, because people are recovering. There's a number of people being, you know, tens of thousands are recovering, but then we see the tens of thousands that are passing away. And so, you know, I think it's important to stay grounded in something positive and faith-filled. One of the things that help me during times like this, sometimes I can't bear to read heavily, if that makes any sense, because my mind or some, you know, distractions and things, or even working, you know, some of us are still working through this time. But devotionals, I think, are a great tool during this time. Something that you can set your intention with early in the day, something that you can pick up if you're feeling discouraged, a quick read, a quick affirmation, a quick confession or decree or declaration, something that centers you back to faith and hope and peace in the midst of, you know, this crazy storm of information and emotional news up and down. So yeah, I think if you have something you can grab quick, I don't think I have it quickly accessible right now, but there's a devotional that I read, His Utmost, My Utmost for His Highest is one of my favorites. I just keep reading it over and over. If you're a writer, you know, there are wonderful writing books out there that can kind of get your attention. I will point out that mine I would love to recommend is great for centering yourself when it comes to writing. Pray, Hear, Write. 21 Days of Prayer and Fasting for Breakthrough in Your Writing is a good one. And then, you know, I think devotionals, you know, they just have just a lasting quality and something quick that you can pick up and read.
So Jevon, I really want to thank you again for taking some time through all this craziness to share your thoughts and wisdom. And, you know, you do so much for the writing community that we all appreciate it a lot. Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Everybody stay strong and stay full of peace.